How's it going, guys? Welcome to the pilot episode of a currently Zack.
Who the fuck did that?
Dude.
That was actually going good.
All right. How's it going, guys? Welcome to the fuck.
Come on, man.
How's it going, guys? Welcome to the pilot episode of a currently unnamed podcast with the recommended names of let me see, Rogue Reporting, Destiny Alert, D2 Gone Rogue. On today's episode of What Could Possibly Go Wrong, who's a pet? I'm not gonna put that one in there. Destiny News, Electric Boogaloo, Good, Bad, and Ugly of the D2 community, and Lesser Report. But that joke is long since dead, so I don't think I'm gonna do that one. I also have with me as permanent hosts, Cody. I believe it's Cody Chassis on Twitter. I think that's how you pronounce it, right?
Yes, sir. What's up? What's up?
And Zack OP, otherwise known as Tosai.
Hello.
Number one, what is it?
Number
What is
one
it?
Steam kills,
Yeah.
Nothing special.
Nothing too big. And today we have our special guest, very, very special to me, honestly. Myrrin, the controller demon.
That's me. I'm special.
All right. So the current layout of this podcast is gonna change a lot. I'm still like tuning the details, but we do have a few good topics here today. What do you guys want to start out with first? I think something more recent would be best, like the linear quote unquote nerf.
Yeah,
Oh,
there was
boy.
a lot of shit about it on Twitter today.
Yeah,
So-
especially I got on this morning and I saw Ultimax tweet his clip of getting beamed in the head by an SMG and still shooting through it. Obviously,
Yeah.
like in private testing, it's like there's a lot more variables that go into it. But I also put out a video showing it's still just as easy to shoot through flinch.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to have changed a whole lot. If anything, it's almost easier now because the recoil is super predictable. So I'm almost nervous that I don't know, man. I feel like when the devs want to make changes like this, they don't quite understand the fact that how recoil works or how flinch works in the game. So when they go and make changes like this, it almost makes it as if the gun just becomes better. But, here we go again, just with more issues.
Yep. I don't know if you've tested it, Myron, but have you tested it? After
No,
the
I
nerf?
have not.
Well, I would imagine it looks about the same as Luke's examples, because he posted like more like realistic scenarios still in a private match where it's still just as busted on controller. And like even
it's
if you
probably,
go ahead.
I was gonna say it's probably easier on controller again because it holds it right on their forehead,
Yeah.
especially when it's flinching.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whether M&K has more bullet magnetism or not, I feel like it's still an issue, And Zack,
Definitely is,
I
yeah.
would imagine you haven't played in a minute, but based on clips that you've seen, what do you think?
I feel like they just remove the randomness of it, and now it's just easier to like predict.
It actually reminds me a lot of the like flinch nerf to snipers. You can still shoot through flinch with snipers. It's definitely for snipers. It's a lot more random. I feel like before I could kind of predict where I need to pull down to shoot through the flinch, but now it just boils down to you don't see it as often anymore. But with like cannons, you shoot in between the shots. But especially with the meta of sidearms and all that, it's more of a equal amount of flinch, like consistently over the duration of the fight. So it's a little bit harder to shoot through that. But
Has anybody tested in a while? Does inverse flinch still exist? Do we know?
are you talking
What
about
exactly is that?
when you get the flinch reduction like so
Okay.
high that it goes the opposite way, or
So if you're aiming on the head, right, and
Oh.
somebody shoots you, you get knocked off slightly.
it's still
And
a
if you
thing
just
with
stay-
primaries?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, snipers it doesn't go back onto the head like it used to in the second shot. If that's what you mean.
Okay. Is it just specials that do?
Yeah,
then do that.
they
then?
made it.
Okay.
I think it's specifically for the precision weapons like the linears and the snipers that they changed individually.
Yeah.
Okay. So for people that didn't understand what inverse flinch used to be, basically if you were aiming at somebody's head and you would tap them once, it would barely knock it off the head. And then if you just remained in that same position and got tapped in the head again, it would directly put the crosshair back on the head. and I guess they have changed that. So that's good at least. So we know the vertical recoil that at least, or the vertical flinch that does exist. I guess it makes it a little harder, but at the same time, it's still quite predictable, especially with how much aim assist is on weapons like these, which kind of sucks, but
It's
you know,
it's definitely not as prevalent, but I feel like the flinch system as a whole needs to be changed across the board because it's not as noticeable because they're not one-shot weapons. But with primaries like hand cannons, SMGs, barely SMGs, like I can't remember a time where I've gotten flinched off an SMG shot, but it that whole inverse flinch system needs to go because anything that puts you on the head when you're not on it, that doesn't make any logical sense to me and for any first person shooter really.
You gotta remember one of the biggest issues isn't the flinch itself, but it's the hitboxes. So you could be flinched and then shoot while off the head and it'll still hit him.
Yeah, bullet magnetism
So,
is a big
yeah.
factor.
yeah.
Honestly, you guys probably already know my position. I'd rather have no bullet magnetism in the game at all.
Yeah.
But
Then they'd have to lower controller aim assist and then there'd be a whole debate on
yeah,
that.
yeah,
That's the only thing that balances it out right now. Otherwise controllers would fully dominate.
it's a console game at base. I
Mhm.
guarantee the majority of the population plays on controller. So I'm not an advocate for removing aim assist. I think controller is in a fine spot right now. It's more so the guns themselves and the systems in place right now is the main
Yeah.
factor.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm not a networking guru by any means, but just with the way the latency and the peer-to-peer and the low tick rate, like you almost have to have this much aim assist in a game like this.
Yeah, it made bullet magnetism made a lot more sense when people were in the air, because I'm pretty sure there was some post from somebody from Bungie or something like that relating to why bullet magnetism is a thing, and it's because of aerial combat, and that originated in Bungie's Halo. It just makes those inner fights easier and more fluid. However, yeah, we all know what happened to inner fights in Destiny.
Oh,
Good
boy.
old AE, man. Good old AE.
I understand the reasoning from Bungie for that, but the implementation of it was far from flawless.
I think the implementation would have been better if they didn't span it over like 9 months.
Yeah, it seems
Yeah.
like they just kind of threw this, like made the system at base and just threw it out or like put it in the game, you know?
I
It's
felt
not
like
really
there
a
wasn't enough to
system.
build into.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they said there would be.
Mhm.
They kind of just nerfed jumping and then didn't add enough ways to be able to
Yeah.
do it again.
Yeah. From like a controller player standpoint, I could understand the frustration because back in the day, I remember, I think talking to you about this, Cody, is like you run into a controller player and you're running stompies, they just lose you as soon as you jump over their head.
A majority of the time. Yeah.
Yeah, nowadays with the increase to like controller sensitivity and that, I feel like it's a lot easier for controller players to fight against that. But also nowadays you don't see many people jumping. And if you do, it's almost always a bad play.
Yeah, it's definitely
Yeah.
easier for me to be a turret nowadays.
Yeah.
Yes, Myrrin can reiterate this as like, how do you feel playing against like quick reaction PC players now?
So I've never like personally had an issue playing against those people just because I've always been on PC. You know, I never like only played against console players who happen to move slower because you know everybody's on controller and everything. So I'm kind of used to the pace, but it's definitely slowed down. Like especially I'm sure you guys know Sap. I play with him a lot, so I'm used to him jumping all over the place. But even him, he can't jump anymore. So everyone's slowed down. It's like boots on the ground almost nowadays. So
It almost made it easier for you, yeah.
yeah, and no, it definitely did. There's way less aerial movement with like shotguns and whatnot, so I can just keep on head level now, just easily snipe people.
Well,
Yeah, I'd assume being a controller sniper right now is probably the
Linears
best
are
because
linears are the go-to now for controller players though. I don't know how that is after the nerf too much, but they nerfed the aim assist too, right?
on what?
On linears.
Yeah, they nerfed the cone, right? 30%
Yeah, I
reduction,
think they
believe.
nerfed
I think
something
they
like
need
that.
to just hit the stat. I don't know how much that influences the rest
Yeah,
of the game.
Yeah.
The stat definitely needs to go down a bit.
I say from the videos you were posting earlier, it didn't seem to really affect it at all.
well, since we're talking about current meta, what do you guys think about the sentiment behind people liking playing against cheaters more than playing against the current meta with the invis, sidearms, all that?
I think people forget how often you played a cheater. I think that's one of the big things. And, playing against a cheater might be more, a little bit of an exaggeration comparing it to this. I'd still much rather have a game where I can win versus where I can't win against a cheater with, infinite killing me and spawn and everything. So, like, I personally would rather have this because, you can fight back by just using the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't really fight back and just, cheat back because that's not allowed. Couldn't do that. So I'll definitely take this over the cheaters personally.
Yeah, I agree with that completely.
What do you think, Zach?
I'm kind of biased because I didn't really play trials. So for
Oh.
me, I was just like, like a viewer. And watching people play against cheaters was a lot more entertaining.
I know a lot of people liked the stasis sentiment of it, right? Like being able to counter cheaters in that way, which, I mean, I guess to a certain extent makes a little sense. But at the same time, it's like the cheaters are just always going to do it better, regardless, at least if they're intelligent cheaters, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I understand the argument, but at the same time, I still think it's a little flawed. Just because cheaters are always going to be cheaters regardless, no matter how well you can or can't counter them. And it just sucks either way.
I remember playing a lot back then. I think I played the most during cheater meta. I guess that could kind of be ironic for me. But most of the time against most cheaters, it's like if they pop super, they are at an extreme disadvantage compared to them not in super, because the majority of the people that I played against that were cheating were terrible players at base. You could just tell whenever they're like in super, or even if the small chance you'd catch them off guard, their movement's terrible, especially their movement within supers. It was just easy to counter them whenever they were in that. But I don't know. If stasis wasn't a huge thing back then, I don't think it would have been, we'd be in the spot where we're talking about the current meta is worse than the cheating meta. I think stasis helped a lot there.
3 peeking.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
Yeah, that's what I was.
So that's how I personally dealt with cheaters. Is I would always have on a sniper. I would 3 peek line up in the head and then make sure you shoot first. It's like that's how you can tell if it's a really bad cheater. That's an easy way to beat them. But most of them, if they have a trigger bot or whatever, it doesn't work. You can trade at most.
All right, so that was kind of a small one. What do you guys think about the recent stasis buffs that are coming?
Interesting, to say the least.
Yeah,
I don't think it'll appear too much, to be honest. I think people are too focused on the 3.0 stuff.
Yeah.
So I think the occasional person will have it on, but I don't think it'll be an issue until someone really starts being annoying with it. And then, it starts a chain reaction like every other meta with like the linears and Lord of Wolves and all that stuff. So
yeah,
it
it
really
still
depends.
means Void and Arc 3.0 is still going to be the best option.
Invis is just too good.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you guys...
Especially with Capri's Sting right now. It's...
Oh yeah,
I don't know if there's any contesting that.
I have a very interesting build with that.
How do you guys currently feel about invis and its visibility?
I think it would be fine if the lighting in the game wasn't so bad, but that's the issue, is it makes it genuinely difficult to see them because of the bad lighting.
Maps like Eternity and Altar Flame and I believe Wormhaven as well.
What's the one on Radiant Cliffs? That one's really bad with the sun in the background.
Yeah.
I heard somewhere that seeing people invis was easier on higher FPS. I didn't look into it. I just saw somebody tweet it.
I have not looked into that, but I really think that's completely incorrect. I'd actually be interested in doing some testing on that, because I can go as high as like 270, and of course you can limit your frame rate. But the only thing that I could see that happening is if the like animation speed of like the invis effect around their character is correlated to the amount of frames.
Outline.
Yeah, and it moves. Yeah, I'd actually be interested in looking into that. But I don't know. There's a lot of things that are tied to frame rate in Destiny, like especially things like scroll wheel skating. It's like doing it on 200 FPS versus doing it on 60 is night and day.
Oh yeah.
There's less frames for you to input that jump input for it to actually like send you forward. There's a reason why I can do it far more consistently in like a 1v1 than I can in things like 6s. just because there's less time for and less chances for the game to recognize that input.
So my thing about invis, right, is some people may not agree with this, but a lot of people I've seen, well, not a lot. There's a few people on Twitter that I saw comparing it to like Halo, where like you can only grab like OS and rockets and invis every so often, right? And I was thinking about it the other day where maybe if you were going to run invis specifically, you couldn't use it on every single dodge rather than maybe just make the cooldown like a lot longer, almost like the radiant dodge on Solar Hunter. So if you're going to be running invis, maybe you only get it like every 2 or 3 minutes or something like that. I know obviously the invis itself is kind of an issue of like being able to see. Um, Obviously this is more of like a temporary band-aid fix rather than the lighting fix itself, but I don't know. It could be something to where at least there's not a bunch of hunters just running around spamming invis constantly. And I know a big thing, a part of it too, was it wasn't an issue beforehand, before 3.0, because you only got it on tether, right?
And
I'm correct.
and flawless execution as well.
Yeah, and flawless execution.
But you actually
but
had
now
to
with
do something to
3.0,
get that.
yeah, but now with 3.0, you just get it on every single dodge, which is definitely an issue. And I know a lot of people like to crush their radar in Destiny 2. So it's
Calling
even
yourself
bigger of an
out with that
issue when you
one.
can't. So it's even bigger of an issue when you can't see people. But I mean, yeah, I think if I were to suggest any fix, it would just be make invis specifically just a longer dodge cooldown if you have it equipped. If
Yeah.
that was a
Yeah, well,
possibility.
I feel like if it were to get nerfed, it'd be one of two things. Increase the amount of visibility for the opposite or the enemy to see you, which is going to be quite controversial because then at that point, what's the point of invis? I think I'm fine with the like frequency of it actually pinging your radar whenever people are invis, but I think a good nerf to it would be if there were to be a nerf applied to it, were to separate the ability to go invis from your class ability from the dodge, not to the point of you have to do something else to get invis, but your first dodge you go invis, right? You get your dodge back, but there's still an invis cooldown, so separate it from the hunter dodge cooldown and make it, on the bottom left where it shows your buffs and debuffs, have it like a cooldown based on a percentage of your class ability cooldown. So if you have a 30-second hunter dodge, which I think is quite high actually, but say it's 30 seconds, you have a 40-second invis cooldown. So you could either wait to use your dodge to go invis, or you could just use your dodge if you need it and then have to wait for your next dodge to come up, and the invis cooldown will go away.
You know what? Also, just remember it's also tied to the smoke grenade as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe that'd be interesting too. If they just kept it to the smoke grenade or something similar, like made it a separate melee.
I feel
instead
like
of a dodge.
Rogue's idea is pretty. Like, say if they stripped the smoke bomb away and you had two options to either have a smoke or an invis charge,
Mhm.
but you only go invis if you shade step when the invis charge is up.
Yes, exactly.
So the smoke's replacement has like a 30-second cooldown. So you
That'd
can
be
still
interesting.
dodge like normal, but
It
when
just
you
won't be an
dodge when
invis
that's
dodge.
full, yeah. Kind of like how Titans have the dodge or the barricade now. That you choose.
Yeah, I like that.
Which out of the three, like including all classes, which out of the three 3.0 subclasses do you think are the most broken right now? In terms of like broken as in very overpowered, very overbearing compared to the rest of them.
Ooh. Arc Titan.
Really?
I hate the overshield. I agree.
Juggernaut
wait.
and Storm Nades. It just
Well, see, I could see that with storm nades, but take away storm nades from that. Take away how strong they are right now. I think Jug gets pretty annoying. I feel like it should be damage should bleed through. If I headshot him, it should go through it. It shouldn't tank all the damage, right? But I think the Void Overshield from Titan is just way too strong, or not way too strong, but it's annoying enough to make me want it nerfed, because anything that changes the TTK I'm completely against.
But the thing with a void overshield is you can just get it so often.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's another cooldown issue with the barricades because 100 resil, it's
Yeah.
like another one pops up before the other one falls down, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can just
Yeah.
keep popping them before your overshield's gone.
There is a like a debuff to the cooldown, right? Whenever you're running the overshield barricade. Pretty sure there is.
I think there is, but it doesn't really make much of a difference, to be honest.
Yeah.
Wait, why do I feel like it was you can't get an overshield from the same barricade? Or
You can.
am I wrong on that? You can?
What do you mean?
Okay.
What do you mean by the same barricade?
I don't know. For some reason, that just popped into my head as if that was like one of their changes, but I think I'm wrong.
I'm not too sure, but I do
Like
know
if,
that you
like
can
if you were
step
to
back
pop the
into it.
barricade. Oh, okay. Yeah, I was gonna say like if you were to pop the barricade, you would get your overshield, and then if you were to lose it and go back to the barricade, you wouldn't get it. But I think I'm wrong on that.
I think you can still do that. I'm not sure if that's in a recent TWAB, but I will post a correction on
I
screen. if
haven't
there
seen anything
is.
on that personally.
I haven't used Void Titan in a minute, so
I used it. We're talking about like it regenerating, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
'cause I know they nerfed it in some way, right?
I think they just slowed down how quickly you regenerated it.
Oh,
I
okay.
think it still regenerates because I was using it like last week and it was regenerating. So
I'm a big Titan player, especially now with like how good SMGs are with PKs. But I feel like even at base with the base barricade, no overshield, like no void, I feel like you shouldn't, even at 100 resil, shouldn't be able to loot barricades.
Yeah.
That just promotes like extreme passive play. I feel like it should be
Yeah.
used exclusively for defense. And I feel like the HP of the barricades are good, but especially in the case of I don't know if anybody watching this knows Wyvern, but playing against
I was
that
just
man
about to bring
in
that
a
up.
1v1, looping barricades is definitely a common occurrence. But yeah, I feel like if you weren't able to loop them even at 100 resil, I feel like it'd be less overbearing. And I think the increased cooldown from using the overshield barricade should be higher. That definitely changes the direction of a 1v1.
I
That's just
personally don't
3 or
think
4
it should
HP.
regenerate in general. To be honest, I think you get the initial 40 from placing it. That's all you should get.
Yeah, I would be fine with
It,
that as well.
it makes you have to put more thought into actually using your overshield and when to push,
There's been
as
cases
opposed
where
to just going back and getting more.
my teammates had been 1 HP or something like that right as I was throwing a barricade down, and that 40 extra HP allowed them to survive. So also the range on which it gives your teammates the overshield is huge. But I think that's also a thing tied to peer-to-peer and where the game thinks your teammate is in regards to
Yeah.
you. All right,
Also,
so go ahead.
Also, am I the only one that finds the new Arc Warlock melee ability
Oh, I was
annoying as
gonna
hell?
bring that up.
It's very interesting when they pair it with a wave frame GL.
Oh,
I don't know if
very
you've played
interesting.
that.
Very
That is
interesting.
one of the most annoying things I've played against.
I
'Cause they
haven't
just throw
had that
down
happen yet,
in melee,
but
it
that-
is bad. You
Anything-
cannot counter it.
Anything that moves quickly in this game has always been a detriment. Like old
Because of
Behemoth
the
Slide.
connection, yeah.
Yeah, the game just can't seem to handle it. It's either the game
Especially
or
with
the
Titan
quality of their
melees.
connection. Yeah. I think we can agree melees in general, especially with things that increase your melee range, like the aspect from Void 3.0, Titan, Ophidian, Syntheseps, Knockout. I don't know. I feel like it'd be a better game if you didn't have lock-on melees, really.
Yeah, I agree.
But then
Yeah,
again,
or the range was significantly reduced, like Call of Duty almost.
yeah, but then again, you also have to think about that from the other input perspective. So for controller, it's definitely I could see it being a big help having the lock on, because unless you're someone like Myrrin or Searu or anybody like that, I could see it being difficult without that ability.
Yeah, peer to peer doesn't help either.
Yeah. I
sucks.
highly doubt we'll ever leave peer-to-peer and go to dedicated servers, just because there's no real benefit to it, especially since and to my knowledge, the only downside of peer-to-peer is for PvP, and it's still a small part of the game.
Yeah, the
Say it allows
PvP
for
is not the
PvE to-
focus.
Yeah.
Yeah, they allows for PV to thrive like crazy.
Yeah, and it's definitely way more cost efficient. Putting the connection workload on to the player base rather than servers Bungie has to pay for, you know? All right, let's move on. What do you guys think of Calico's ban? Do you think it was warranted to be a permanent ban? Do you think it was justified?
Rest in peace, brother Calico, man.
You know, personally,
I wish we knew the actual reason.
I'm very very certain it was because of the griefing. And they did say that there was multiple offenses, and I'm not too sure if they mean multiple different offenses that caused the ban, or if it was multiple instances of him griefing. I really don't think that it's fair to permaban him for the griefing, especially considering he wasn't given any warnings for him doing it previously. If there had been warnings saying you can get a suspension for this, and he got that every time he did it, or close to every time he did it, or every time he got reported for it, I could see the ban being warranted. But I can guarantee you, if he was ever warned that he was going to be banned for it, I don't think he would have done it again.
Yeah. Because I have it here. It says from the Bungie Help account, we have records that this account has broken rules in our code of conduct and terms of service on multiple occasions.
That does sound broader, like he's done multiple things. I understand Calico does have a spotty past, to say the least, with people he used to associate with and everything. But the fact that the end result was from him posting him throwing a trip mine, screwing over somebody's solo GM, I don't think a permanent ban was warranted for that. But, you know, it's in the end, it's up to Bungie. What they say is final. I just wish that at least they'd be able to list the reasons why he got banned to him directly. It doesn't have to be a public post, but I would hate if I got banned and was never told why.
Yeah, I think the reasoning is hard to give input on because if we don't know the exact reason, you can't really.
Yeah.
But I think also from Bungie's point of view, that the no rules tournament he hosted is also a bit.
It's a bit dodgy, but
yeah,
it could be considered. I don't know, because he wasn't in the game with them. He was just covering gameplay of it. I don't know. I could kind of see
that
it,
definitely wrote a line.
It's kind of like a gray area kind of thing.
Yeah, because it's never been done before, and it's not. I'm not entirely familiar with their terms of service, but I don't think anything in that he broke directly. Obviously, some of the people playing definitely did, and there was an entire $1 million lawsuit over that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's where it came from.
Of which the dude cheating won. But yeah, that was definitely a big fiasco. It was definitely an entertaining tournament for sure.
Yeah. Also, I just want to point out this is all speculative.
Yes.
This is just us giving our opinions. We're not saying what Bungie should or shouldn't do. We're just, voicing our opinions and just for conversation's sake.
Yeah. So Zach, I have a question for you.
Uh-oh.
What are your specific reasonings behind not playing as much? I'll go down the line with this.
Yeah, Mr. Number One Steam kills overall.
Yes,
Let's
sir.
hear
it. I just feel like there's not a reason to play Destiny PvP.
Can you dive a little deeper into that?
Incentive.
Being like a primary PvP player since like Destiny 1, the gunplay always made up for the lack of content. Right, even in like a bad meta, I could still make it fun. But now the meta's in such a bad way that it's not even fun.
What is specifically like a few examples of a pain point for you that makes it not fun?
Well, all the changes to control, like the quitters penalty, it's
It
stupid.
still bothers me to this day that it says competitive, and you also get banned from playing comp and trials if you get that ban.
Yeah.
Which I understand that they have it implemented as if it's one of those game modes temporarily, but I feel like if you're gonna do that, you should really just hold off and make it a separate suspension. But I get the reasoning behind having a quitters penalty, but Bungie is a big fan of band-aid fixes, and rather than focus on the issue on why players are leaving, is a better route than just giving people suspensions for leaving.
Yeah,
But
like yesterday I played, I got error coded twice back to back. So I ended up
I
getting
saw
a
that.
2-hour ban. And if I got another ban, I would have had a 2-month suspension from Destiny.
Yeah, I also,
So it's like, it kind of scares me to play the game.
it could be said, but it could be said that you're at fault for that. But I can already assume that all the other games you play, you don't have connections issues with.
Oh no, like I looked at the Destiny tracker, everybody in both the lobbies disconnected.
Yeah,
Yesterday the servers were iffy.
it's not even
So
the
all
servers;
12
it's peer to peer.
like all 12 people in both games got disconnected. Like
Mm.
even if you look at the clip on Twitter, you can see people depart the match before I do, like a second before.
Yeah. Okay, I'll go down the line. Myrrin, same question. What makes you stray away from playing nowadays? What has made
So-
you play less?
So for me, it is entirely meta based because my whole playstyle is what you would call aggressive sniping, right?
Yes, yes.
And so that just entirely does not work in this meta. So all of the past metas, even through like the Lord of Wolves Omni stuff, I could still just use a hand cannon, the sniper, and I can compete, right?
Agreed.
In this meta, if I'm not using a linear, I'm throwing. If I'm not using a sidearm, I'm throwing. If I'm not spamming invis with wall hacks, I'm throwing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like you have to crutch something this season to win. And I didn't have to do that in any other season at all. Even throughout like stasis and all that, you could still win with other loadouts on. You know, I've always been like a Goldie main, but like now I'm forced to play invis with a quad 100 Kep rebuild. Like it's crazy what you have to do to win now. And like my enjoyment doesn't really come from winning. It's more having fun while losing. So like if I can enjoy the game and lose, you know, I'm fine with that. But like now I have to like really try to win. And that's in anything.
I'm definitely on the same side as that. It's a video game at the end of the day, and if I'm not having fun with it, why am I playing it? Especially since incentive has been such a big issue. Like you'll have like for example this last weekend, it was the scout, right? I don't mind playing Bannerfall. I actually quite like playing Bannerfall, but when it comes down to it, if you're not running tip top meta, it's just some people can compete, but most of the time it's not going to work out if you're running against competent players that know what they're doing and know how to use that meta to its full extent.
Yeah, like I didn't touch the last weekend at all. Like there's no incentive for loot, and there's no reason to play. There's no enjoyment. It wasn't a good map. It's just linears and invis. You know what I mean? So it's like I didn't even play it all last week.
It's gotten to the point to where an entire class isn't even meta anymore. Like I was talking to Luke or Multimac as well as Calico whenever we were playing a few weekends ago when it was Burnout. Calico had said, if I see a Warlock join my fire team, I'm booting them. Just purely because the only chance Warlock has against current meta Titan and Hunter is Void 3.0, and even with that, it doesn't provide the same advantage Void Hunter and like Void Titan and Arc Titan do.
I think one of the main issues that comes from Void Titan is just the bubble being a tier 5 super.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like we were in such a good state with abilities when 30th anniversary came out. What?
Oh, don't remind me.
What happened to that? But before we get into that, Cody.
It's a good question.
Cody, what makes you play the game less and less these days?
Okay, so for me, it's a few things. You guys already mentioned a few of them. Loot incentive is one. There's literally no reason to go into trials or quick play. Second, the meta is not favorable. I absolutely despise it right now. Just between linears, invis spam, the I don't know what the chess piece is called, Falchins or whatever. I don't even know how to say it.
I believe.
But that is just an awful meta right now. And then just a combination of some of the abilities that like the Juggernaut and the Warlock ability just being spammed 24/7. But then you top all of that with the awful connections that we consistently get, and I think that's a direct result of skill-based matchmaking. It seemed to have gotten worse, the connection at least, because of it. So when you add all of those things together on top of just terrible connections pretty consistently, and I'm not even over exaggerating, like I swear at least 40 to 50% of the time there's at least one person with a pretty spotty connection in every single game. So you add all that up, it becomes aggravating. And I'm saying that in a nice way, like as nice as possible. and the loot incentive thing, like I haven't touched trials in so long, and that's mostly due to the fact of like you can sometimes get games in like quick play, right, where people aren't necessarily always abusing the most broken shit in the game, but trials specifically, the incentive or the primary goal is to win every single game, right? Like there's more
Mhm.
casual people in quick play, so when you're constantly playing people that are always trying to win in trials, they're always going to be using the most broken stuff, everything that's meta, everything that's, more accessible. So that becomes even more aggravating. So I haven't touched trials like at least consistently in several seasons. Just a combination of that and loot incentive alone. Um, but those are the biggest reasons for me. I mean, there's a few other like small ones here and there, but if those things got better just as a whole, like I would definitely touch it again. But yeah, it's been rough to say the least.
I could name so many things.
Yeah,
Like
those are the
what?
big ones though.
Obviously, from a quick play point of view, because I don't really play trials. I don't enjoy it. There's not a reason to play it for me. But like SBMM quitters penalty, the one map we got, Disjunction. I think community wide, everybody dislikes Disjunction.
It's a D1 map. It's literally a recreated D1 map. That's what I was told.
It was like Frontier, right?
It was the bridge map.
I'm not too sure. I didn't play D1, especially
Yeah.
not PvP, because as Myrrin has seen, I am a complete dad on controller.
Yeah, it's real rough.
But yeah, with going back to the connection thing, your connection is only as good as your opponent's.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you guys know with my setup and all that, it's exactly perfect on where you want it to be, including network. And it's only as good as the person I'm going against. So my connection will be perfect for everybody else, but people's connection against me is just unbearable sometimes, especially with how melees work and especially with linears. I'm pretty sure I have a few clips of me not even seeing someone peeking and me dying to a linear just because they happen to lag at that exact moment and teleport back right as they peek. It gets pretty bad.
Yeah, and will you guys know why in this game specifically people with terrible connections have an advantage?
I've
I
always
swear
wondered
in
that.
COD and Halo it was never like that.
You got punished for having a bad connection, but in Destiny, it's kind of like a reward.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because like
It's
you
like, I think
appear
that's
on
why the
people's
peer-to-peer thing.
screen.
That's why.
yeah. I was gonna say, how long ago did COD and Halo have dedicated servers? Was it actually
Modern
super
Warfare
early?
2019 was the first Call of Duty that had dedicated servers, and on PC specifically, Black Ops 2, Black Ops 1, Modern Warfare 3 are the and World at War are the big ones I played. They weren't nearly as bad. Modern Warfare or World at War is a different story because
So is it just the engine then?
it's
Because
Destiny 2's peer-to-peer isn't fully peer-to-peer. It's a hybrid, I believe.
Yeah,
So there are points in which servers are involved, and I believe that's with matchmaking, with a few other things. I'm not entirely knowledgeable on that point, but even still, peer-to-peer still being involved in the year we're in is still kind of wild to me. But from the type of game it is, it makes sense for it to be peer-to-peer. Because the amount of workload that it would be and the amount of money it would cost to run the entire game on dedicated servers, it wouldn't be a smart business decision for them to only have dedicated servers for PvP, because whether we like it or not, it's a very small part of the game, and it's not the main point of the game.
Yeah, so if somebody like is like some network guru that can answer that, because even as far back as like Black Ops 2 when I was like doing scrims and GBs and stuff, if you had like even like 20 to 10 ping, like you were frying. Like you were literally a walking god on the map. If you
GBs
had
is game
anything
battles
more
for
than
anyone
like
unaware.
yeah. If you had like 50, 60, 80 plus ping, like you couldn't shoot anybody that had as low as like 10 ping. Like you were just getting absolutely fried. And in this game, you will literally have an advantage with over 100 ping, and it makes no sense. So there's got to be some sort of network engine server differences that I'm just not understanding.
I think it would be a combination between the engine, peer-to-peer, and the tick rate.
Yeah.
I don't think tick rate's entirely involved when it's related to PvP or peer-to-peer.
I think it is just
Something-
because of that's where you are on the map. So that could be why you would visibly be somewhere else than you are actually shooting, which is why you get the advantage part. So I think that might directly correlate to that.
I mean more so in comparison to dedicated servers. I don't think it's like tick rate on dedicated servers are really influential when you look at games like Counter-Strike and Valorant. Valorant's always been 128 tick, but Counter-Strike 64 tick versus servers like ESEA and custom hosted servers as well as Faceit. There's a big difference between 64 and 128, but I feel like tick rate increasing tick rate for peer-to-peer, I don't think that would influence as much as increasing dedicated servers would be, or increasing the tick rate of dedicated servers would be. I just think that peer-to-peer, like in the modern age, 2022, I don't think it should be a thing. But again, with the type of game Destiny is, PvP being a very small part, I could understand why. I could see why it wouldn't be considered if it even has at all.
Yeah, I mean, at this point in Destiny, it's so far down the road that it's not worth investing into. If they did it, if D2 launched with like dedicated, it would have been so much better.
Yeah.
Going back to loot incentive, I have a topic from Phoenix Osu on Twitter. Phoenix on Osu on Twitter. He said, talk about the soft sunsetting issue. So removing the ability to get the guns such as Izume, Palindrome, Hothead, as well as Sharas from Trials, Igneous Hammer. What do you guys think about them rotating guns out like that?
I don't know.
For me, Palindrome,
go ahead.
Palindrome, I still think by far is the best legendary 140 hand cannon in the game. It could be contested by Fatebringer, but I still think Palindrome comes out on top. Igneous Hammer as well. There's no 120 hand cannon in the game right now that's better than an Adept Igneous. I can personally attest to that. I have God rolled Steady Hands, True Prophecies, and I have, in my eyes, a perfect Igneous, like Adept Igneous, and it just, nothing else compares. Hothead, I'm not a big PvE guy, but I do know that Hothead is probably the best legendary rocket in the game right now. And I feel like them removing that, or the ability to get that, is far from the excuse of we have too many weapons in the pool. I feel like it creates a lot of FOMO,
I think I always thought sunsetting was a good idea to keep the game fresh, but the issue with it is they don't produce enough weapons per season for it to work. So there's not enough to replace the things that they bring away.
This is more so talking about sunsetting as in removing the ability to get the gun with the precedent that we're going to be able to get it again in the future, not capping the light level.
I feel like they'd have to give like a more specific what they mean in the future to do that, because
I'm not that sure if they said in the future, but
I mean, they normally rotate them out now.
I'm not too sure. I'm not sure.
We haven't gotten the shotgun back yet, and that's been rotated out.
Yeah,
Astral Horizon,
like
right?
with Astral Horizon as well.
Yeah.
I'm personally not a fan of light level sunsetting, like spare rations, old mind benders. I'm glad mind benders came back, but even the Waking Vigil as well. Like they had these guns out at some point, and purely because there was community outcry, they stopped doing it, and now they're re-releasing the weapons without so they don't have the incentive to make new weapons. Yeah, we got new weapons with Witch Queen, and then we had the duality weapons and stuff like that, and those are cool, but I just strongly feel that that's preventing them from creating more weapons that we could have had purely because we got old ones back.
Yeah.
So this might be an extension of the issue we're talking about, and I think that's crafting, right? Because remember what they did with the oh shoot, I'm blanking. What's the activity that they released during the 30th anniversary with the BXR?
Dares of Eternity.
Yeah. So remember what they just did with that, where you had to grind all the Dare stuff like whenever that came out, and now just recently they released the crafting for a lot of those weapons, so we had to re-grind them.
Mm-hmm. And even if you had red borders previously, you can dismantle those?
Yeah,
or
I saw a lot of people pissed about that, and I almost kind of agree. Like that was pretty shitty that the
They're
people that didn't
creating-
have those weapons, or at least collected a certain amount of them, like didn't just immediately get to be able to jump in to be able to crafting those. But I don't know, that would obviously be a little too far fetched.
They're creating a player base artificially and creating player counts artificially by doing that. The number one thing to Bungie is obviously player counts and player retention, but by doing that, like for me, I had I think a few Wastelanders that were red borders, and I had dismantled them after the update came out, and I'm like, oh, I don't get progress for this. And it complete, like, for somebody who does not like playing PvE in any way, shape, or form, it completely pushed me away from wanting to do it. If I had that progress, I more than likely would have played dares to get those. But they're doing it. It really seems like they're doing as much as they can just to keep player retention, which makes sense. But I don't think that's the right way of going about it. But it may be an engine thing, or it may be a game function thing where previously acquired red borders could not physically like in any way apply to the newly craftable weapons, you know? So maybe it's not them doing it on purpose, but it's just how the game is currently functioning. But I really think it was to artificially increase player retention.
They've done retroactivity before with like titles and stuff, so I don't see how that would be an issue.
Yeah, maybe it's because it's a completely separate system and that hasn't been implemented the same way yet, but I'm not too sure.
Maybe.
Yeah, because I assume they're going to be slowly rolling out the ability to craft like almost every weapon in the game at some point, right? So
Well, they're doing it with Deep Stone Crypt, right? They're re-releasing those weapons now.
yeah.
And I'm pretty
So-
sure
Yeah,
Black
to
Armory
regrind
weapons
them,
are
yeah.
coming too.
So I almost wish, in a way, like they would at least tell us, so that way if we have any of those red borders, we can hold on to them beforehand and then be able to dismantle them on when it actually releases. But that would just be maybe a little too much to ask for. But I don't know.
I feel like the crafting system is so like it's so flawed in multiple ways.
Especially
I
when it
personally
comes
don't mind it.
when
I really dislike it.
you have
Not even personally. I think for the health of the game, it just wasn't that.
What
It
what
wasn't
don't
what
you
the
like
game
about it?
needed. But it kind of took away the reason to, like so if you played Destiny 1 and you got a weapon that you'd been grinding for, it was like a happy feeling, right?
Yeah, like
So
finally
you're
getting that
happy
loot
you
drop.
got it. Now it's, oh, I've got to get a red border. I
Mhm.
don't care what it comes with, it's just got to be red.
Yeah.
Also with the process of leveling weapons, especially when you have something like a craftable shotgun, you either have to mind-numbingly play PvE, equip it at the end of a match, or actually using it during the match. And on that last point, especially with shotguns, like if you don't have the right roll, it's going to be almost useless. You
Mhm.
know, the only caveat to that is like something with like Beloved at base is still really usable, like uncrafted or with like not the best roll, but the amount of time it takes to get it in like PvE is really long. But then again, I rarely craft weapons, and when I do, it's in Shirochi, which they're fixing, and I haven't
annoying.
used them in PvE activities that complete and give you completion progress. So maybe it definitely is far more efficient to do it that way, but I don't know. I'm fine with the system how it is. If I got to do what I got to do for the weapon, but it definitely pushes me away from crafting weapons. Like I have weapons that are crafted, just not leveled because it takes so long for me to find something that I will enjoy doing and not, want to fall asleep.
Yeah. Like another thing that they didn't really think about was master raids. Because like the master raid loot is completely irrelevant because you can just craft the normal raid stuff, which is better. So you can't craft the depth weapons.
Yeah.
So they made an entire end game content just irrelevant. Obviously, there'll be niche players that play that stuff, but it doesn't make sense to me to not make adept weapons craftable.
Yeah. Crafted weapons, I'm pretty sure, are like far superior than adept weapons. Correct?
Yeah,
Really, because
yeah.
of
They are,
enhanced
and
perks.
because you don't have to grind for them.
That
Rolls, you
and
just
enhanced perks are very good.
enhanced perks are better. Yes.
I feel like adepts should have a chance to drop enhanced perks.
Yeah, but
But
then again, that makes that useless because you can just get 5 red borders and then craft the exact roll you want. You know what I mean?
yeah,
yeah, that's what I don't like about it.
I don't know. I feel
You
like if they made adepts more adept, I feel like them dropping enhanced perks would be even better and put them a level above crafted weapons. But it's you still have that grind, and there should be that grind. But I don't know. I like the idea of crafting weapons, but with how much better they are compared to adept weapons, it doesn't seem entirely right.
I wish like the way I first envisioned crafting weapons was you already have your weapon, but the more you use it, the better it becomes. So like you didn't have to regrind 5 red borders for like a beloved.
So like a
Mhm.
level up system.
Yeah, so say like kind of like a prestige system for your weapon, right? Like every 100 levels, you unlock a new perk that you can take to like the gunsmith and put on your weapon.
Yeah.
Kind of like they did in D1 with like the gunsmith, you could re-roll weapons. Kind of like that.
That also ties into another point from Phoenix as well. They were talking about current vendors and how it's not the same as D1. The only vendor related thing I have of memory from D1 is my brother waking me up to buy a God Roll Palindrome from Shaxx. But I feel like if they introduced how they have armor but with weapons now with all the vendors, that'd be very, very nice. Like random out of bounds roll from Shaxx or random pure poetry rolls from Shaxx, as well as focusing like Drifter has, What do you guys think about how the vendors currently are?
I feel like at this point, if you've played Destiny 2 for a while, you pretty much have everything that the vendor would sell.
The only useful thing is like the mods you missed out on, like powerful friends
Yeah.
and stuff like that. But as for like weapons and gear, they're kind of useless.
I can agree.
I do like the thing they did with the Crucible though, where the more times you reset your rank, the more perks roll on weapons.
Yeah.
I just wish there was more
do like
weapons
that.
in that pool.
I always thought the best like PvP weapons should be obtained in PvP. Like remember in Destiny 1, like Ice Luna, Matador, what was it,
Yeah.
Party Crasher. Like those are some of like the 3 best PvP weapons. You can get them just from random drops in PvP.
I feel like that's a thing Bungie could have done, but they didn't purely because it makes those PvP players play PvE.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a fine system because it gives me an excuse to play PvE, play something different. But I do get the frustration behind it, especially with something like Found Verdict, which after doing it, and I got very lucky on my second roll, it is pretty easy to do. It's just getting the people to do it that know what they're doing, and I understand for especially solo players, like having to LFG and deal with that. Everybody knows how bad that can end up. It's just an accessibility thing. I have kind of a hot topic. What do you guys think about Flawless Pool? I am
I'm
definitely
conflicted.
I'm definitely the only person in this call right now that plays both trials and sixes, like the entirety of PvP.
I'm gonna go to the bathroom.
But
Yeah, me and Cody will just go.
here I'll start with an inexperienced trials player. Go ahead, Zach.
I think in my head, the more things that split up an already small player base is bad.
Agreed.
So to me, Flawless Pool is just bad in general. I understand why it's there, but I think it's bad.
For
Like-
why is it bad?
Because you're just splitting up a player base, right? And it's easily abusable with 6-win resetting.
Yeah, I'm definitely an offender for that. But I'll let
I
Myrrin.
mean, there's nothing wrong with it, really. But I don't know.
I have kind of a hot take when it comes to Flawless Pool, but I'll let you go next, Myrrin.
So I'll go back to what Zach said. Is definitely the what is it, the split player bases for an already low population. Like if you look at last week, there's what, like a couple thousand players, and then you're splitting that between 8 pools when there's freelance. That's another thing. I think it's literally 8, right? 8 different pools. Yeah, it's 8 different pools with 3,000 teams or whatever, or players. I'm not sure which one it is. It just makes that so you're just no population. Queue times are long, playing the same people over and over again. And then even when you're in the non-flawless pool, like if you're resetting, that's when the games are still slow and things like that. It's just, it doesn't really work, especially when there's not enough loot incentive to go flawless. It makes for people like me and you, Rogue, who will just reset because it makes the game, easier to play or more enjoyable necessarily to playing in against all stacks in the flawless pool. And, there's no reason to go flawless anymore. So I think if they just added more incentive to go flawless, people wouldn't have a reason to reset, and that would make that issue go away. But there's a lot of different reasons why it's not a good thing. Population being one of them, loot incentive being another, flawless pool dodging, like all that stuff is just it doesn't work.
I'm back.
All right, what about you, Cody? Just in time.
I only have one take on this. Flawless pool shouldn't exist. Trial should just be connection-based matchmaking / card-based matchmaking up to 7 wins.
Why is that?
I just think it's what makes the most sense. I don't think I hate the idea of a player base being split even more than it possibly already could be, especially with things like skill-based matchmaking or MMR-based matchmaking or anything like that. I hate when player bases are split because the best possible experiences are with the best possible connections just across the board. If you guys couldn't tell, I'm just a big advocate for just the best possible connections because that's how I enjoy the game, is when my bullets are actually going where I'm shooting. So if Trials has a good connection and I know voice crack, I know I'm earning those games, especially if they're slightly getting harder all the way up to 7 and the connection is at least decent all the way across the board, then I'm having fun. And if obviously the loot incentive and et cetera, but yeah.
I definitely agree that.
I had one more thing.
Oh, go ahead, Myrrin.
I just wanted to add, like with the whole flawless pool thing being added in general, is like, why are we quote unquote fixing something that isn't broken? Because didn't we have peak Trials performance at the beginning of the revamp, like the week before flawless pool, right?
When flawless pool was broken.
Yeah. So
was that the weekend of Burnout?
Yes,
Yeah,
it
weekend,
was. There's just
I played
700,000
Trials
players
for
and
4
stuff.
days straight that weekend. Even me.
I did 29 hours with Cal on a stream. We were trying to do a
Everyone
48,
played more.
but his little brother cut his foot open on a tuna can, so that stream got
Oh
cut
my
early.
God.
But player population is a big factor to not wanting
It's
flawless
the
pool.
biggest one. Yeah.
But for me, the more than likely hot take is that it should be hard. There shouldn't be an easy way out.
Mhm.
You should match
Yeah.
hard to beat players, right? And there's this whole idea behind not wanting to get better at something, so looking for an easier way to get to your goal. If you're like a 1KD player, bottom 50%, I can understand the frustration behind not being able to get that loot. But if the meta was in a perfect state for everybody, which is physically impossible, and you were only matching players that were genuinely better than you, you should be forced to improve if you genuinely want that loot. There's the common correlation to Grandmasters where, if it's my first time going for the week, I shouldn't get less champions. But I feel like that's not a fair comparison. But you should have to work for the loot. And if Flawless Pool is staying, which it more than likely is, you should get rewarded for playing in Flawless Pool. Double loot or cosmetics or anything along the line. I think cosmetics would be a big bonus for a lot of the top players.
Wait, aren't you already rewarded for playing in Flawless Pool? Like you get the adept, you have a chance of getting the adept weapon.
That's only if you have a 7-win card that's still flawless.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that should be a thing in Flawless Pool.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Because I think you get I haven't played in a long time, but when I did, you got a chance at what an exotic shard and the adept weapon or whatever.
Yeah, you get an ascendant shard on a 7-win card and the adept weapon.
And it's like I think a 50-50 whether or not you get it after a win.
Yeah,
But
if they just added that to flawless pool, I mean, I still don't want it, but if they had that flawless pool, it'd be semi worth it.
That's another thing. Like a lot of the weapons nowadays, it's also at fault for the meta. A lot of the weapons in the trials pool for weapons, there's no real reason for me to go for the scout, or the bow. That may be attributed to rolls on the weapon. I'm not too familiar with the rolls on the bow. I know you can get swashbuckler or kill clip, but it doesn't really give me a reason. The only weapon I believe that's currently in the pool that I would want to go for is reeds, but now I have the role I need. There needs to be something that maintains that need to play, That's why
I feel like
cosmetics is a
loot
big
in
one.
Destiny as a whole is just few and far between when it comes to like desirability. I don't think there's a lot of loot in the game which is desirable to most players, outside of people who just like to collect things.
Yeah, I agree.
See, a lot of it comes into power creep. With some things being stronger, and then other things are just unnecessary at that point because of whatever the PvE meta is.
Yeah.
'Cause for like linears, it was Storm Chaser, right? Which made the need for reeds just gone because you can go grind the dungeon for that.
Yeah, you didn't
Yeah,
even
no.
need to touch trials.
Yeah, I was
there's no
gonna just
reason
bring that
to.
up too. Like, I was gonna say this might come across as like a little elitist, but it's like if people don't want to touch trials because they don't want to play in that, like things like Taipan exist, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't have to touch trials.
There
There's
is that
craft as well, so you get
alternative.
enhanced perks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's now, but that comes back to like the soft sunsetting when it comes to things like Eye of Soul and Astral Horizon and Palindrome and stuff. Just removing those weapons that are powerful that were semi difficult to get, and I say semi because it's pretty free to get Palindrome, but.
When you say that, like Eye of Soul is literally statistically the best sniper in the game.
Yeah.
So bringing that out is very difficult to bring something just as powerful.
And things like Shara's, it's the best 600 in the game still.
Yep, 100 range.
Yeah.
What if they took the trials weapons they removed out the pool and locked them behind the flawless pool?
That's a good idea, actually.
I think maybe
Wait.
making adept weapons get locked behind the flawless pool wouldn't be a bad idea.
Then what would the
Yeah.
point be behind going flawless in the first place?
To unlock the chance to get the adept weapons, and then you get one, and then they become, I don't know, farmable, I guess. But like that's kind of how it works, but it's not really.
Yeah, like,
it's
so-
very difficult to make loot incentive when flawless and flawless pool exist because there's no reason to separate them at that point.
Yeah.
Well, like,
Depth
say for
weapons
example,
need to be made worth it. Damn it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think endgame loot as a whole needs to be made worth it.
Yeah.
Because it's not.
The problem with that statement is how are you to make the loot worth it?
I mean,
I feel like
It's never gonna
Pinnacle
happen.
Weapons was the pinnacle for making loot worth it. Things like Mountaintop Recluse, Revoker, they had perks with them that actually made it worth it to grind for. Not Forgotten is a big one as well.
so I have it. It may never happen, but this is like a genuine idea that could just at least be tested for a short amount of time.
Them testing something for a
Do-
short amount of time. Are you sure? Flawless Pool's still a test,
Okay,
Cody.
hold on, hold on. Asking a little too much here, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Just make the adept weapons do a teensy little bit more damage in like PvP or something, like a point or two more.
don't they do that with
And-
like adept big ones, like the mods?
Yes.
Yeah, but for PvP. And if they end up being too strong or whatever, then like they can be nerfed or whatever. But it's just like it's an idea, you know what I mean?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, that's already kind of tied in with the depth mods. Like you get a little bit more range, a little bit more stability, like with the
Yeah.
mods, and of course masterworking. It gives bonus to stats that aren't the masterwork, but it's not enough to me personally to warrant
It's not big
it
enough of a
giving it the
margin.
title adept. I feel like if those
Like,
bonuses were bigger, going for something adept makes more sense. I've had friends that have said, I'm not gonna go for an adept weapon because there's not a big enough benefit to warrant the hassle.
Yeah, like I'm still gonna gun you whether I have a Adept Icarus or not.
Yeah,
You know what I mean, or a Adept Range or not.
yeah.
Like,
You
I
and Zack
also
are
have,
perfect examples of that. Like I'm sure you have palindromes. I'm sure you have.
yeah.
I don't know. I have souls that you use or have used that you perform just fine, not being adept.
I also
Right.
have a big idea, but I don't think it really work in Destiny. But for the flawless pool, so if anybody's ever played like an MMO, you know how certain gear sets have buffs to them?
okay,
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
So if
for
you wear the
example,
full
if
gear
you
set, you get a bonus.
so
yeah, like you
almost
get
like
a
how the
buff for
gambit sets
wearing
work.
2 piece of gear, then 3, then 4. Like to me, it would make sense for Trials gear to give you buffs in PvP,
I
Yeah,
could see
just to
that.
like stats.
I,
So like
yeah,
if you go flawless pool to go flawless, you get the armor, right?
yeah,
Hmm.
it would have to be so like specific to the point where it's not introducing more power creep. But yeah, I know what you're saying.
I feel like if it gave stat bonuses, like if you're wearing the full set of the specific set, it gives you a bonus 10, 20 recovery, 10, 20 discipline, something like that. That would
Yeah, or
be
even
nice.
just like handling, or maybe get extra range, or
Yeah.
But like even if it was
it
like
has to be
Combo.
worth
got,
it though.
you got a flawless, like a pair of Trials boots from the flawless pool, which gave you plus 10 mobility, right? Because they're boots.
Yeah.
Or like a chest that gives you plus 10 resilience. Obviously, that loot would be tied behind the flawless pool, or at least then there's a reason to play and you gain something from it. Like a pair of flawless gauntlets gave you plus 10 reload. You
Yeah.
know, just little things like that.
But all this doesn't matter because the meta still sucks.
It's always gonna come back to the meta for the playability of the game. I don't remember who exactly posted this on Twitter, but I saw someone say something about catalysts for exotic armor. do you-
Catalyst for exotic armor.
Like Ophidians gives you even more handling, or
See, I was gonna say
Or-
that.
More melee range.
I feel like that would
More
make
melee
that would
No,
make some
definitely not
exotics
that.
too broken at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like
They're already strong enough.
yeah, like transversus gives you.
Maybe if they just added a stat bonus, that'd be okay. But anything to change the perks, I don't think is a good idea.
Transversus
Stompy's perfect in there.
Transversus gives you the amplified slide bonus when it has the catalyst.
Oh,
Stop
okay.
it.
Do not give them ideas, please.
Dune Marchers returns to the 20-meter double chain.
Okay, we've been on this topic for a minute.
Um,
Should we? What are we at for time?
We just hit an hour 9, so
It's pretty.
I told you don't ask me Destiny questions because
Yeah.
no, this is a good thing. We want to keep it long. We want it as
So you
much
like it long,
juice in
Ron?
here. Hey yo.
Next
Oh,
topic.
do I have some bad news for you?
Well, do you guys have any specific topics that you really wanted to talk about? Or
I could bring up one more. I had an idea.
okay, go ahead.
So I had one for the. I know you mentioned replayability a minute ago. One fix I had for that for PvP was adding a ranked playlist.
Oh yes, definitely.
So something like that is something I would personally grind the absolute hell out of, just for like if they add an in-game leaderboard or something, people love that, and then they could add like a ranking system of based on elo or MMR, however they want to do it, and then have actual rank brackets, and then they could do individual emblems for each rank where you place at the end of the season, and then like a separate one for top 500. People fiend over emblems and stuff, so I feel like that would really help with replayability and wouldn't be too difficult because it would just be an emblem that they have to design every season.
Mhm.
So I feel like that would be a really good fix, and then they could make trials at that point more casual. So that way people, the hardcore players would have somewhere to go, and the casual players would have somewhere to go for loot in PvP, which would be trials. And then, during the week when there's no trials, since trials is literally our only like content as PvP players, we would have the rank playlist play. So I feel like that kind of solves the content drought in PvP.
Side note, this is being recorded before the comp revamp. I have no clue if that's coming. I have no clue if they
We don't
mentioned
know anything about
anything about the comp revamp. But I definitely agree that that would be a big incentive for playing PvP, especially for me.
Personally, that would solve my entire content issue with PvP.
How do you feel about that, Zach?
I mean, they kind of did that in not that, but something similar in year one, right? With the Crucible ornaments, it gave you something to do
They did.
Yeah.
outside of PvP. Like I've been wanting them to bring that
Some
back
more
since like
ones.
year two.
Oh, imagine
Yeah, they-
ornaments for like top PvP weapons, like eyes,
Even armor
Luna,
ornaments, yeah,
yeah,
would be good.
all that.
Like if some guy has this cloak, you know, he's like a really good PvP player.
It's like
you know?
the OG
people love
Iron
seeing that
Banner
stuff.
ornaments, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Hopefully that's what's
I
coming.
think a thing that Destiny lacks, and it might just be me that thinks this, but there's no sense of seeing someone and being like, "Whoa, that guy has that."
Yeah, it's no exclusivity things with
Exactly.
with like I feel like cosmetics are one of those things you can make so exclusive where people wouldn't get upset over it. Like, you know, a ghost shell or something for like completing a specific event at a certain difficulty that like most people can't do, you know, something for the top 1% players to work towards.
Yeah. The only time I have that feeling of like, oh, this guy's a veteran player is with the OG Iron Banner ornaments, especially the Warlock helmet.
Yeah.
And like the
And the
cloak
Hunter
the cloak defizzle runs as well, you know. It's just kind of a staple to have. I get people's sentiment behind wanting to keep those in the past and not give them back out, you know. Because it sort of shows that you've been around for a while. But I also understand the other side of that, where it's you want that exclusive stuff as well. But if they were to give that out for reaching a pinnacle goal, like reaching top 500 in the world for competitive, you know, currently there's no in-game leaderboards right now. It's all API stuff like Destiny Tracker and things like that. And if they were to
all
implement
third-party.
that into the game for somebody to actually look at in-game, for especially maybe casual players that want to like actually dive into PvP and get better at it, ranked is a perfect place for that, because you're matching your rank. It's the only place where skill-based makes sense to me.
Yeah, then so hopefully
I
we
agree
can
with
have
that.
control back.
Yeah.
You know?
And then you have control for the casual, trials for the casual loot base, and then, you know, you have your rank playlist for the competitive skill based side.
Exactly.
It separates it all evenly for the different people that want to play.
This is just a little additive to what we've been talking about, but back I think it was about the middle year of Forsaken, so we're talking like middle of year 2ish, when ranked was like super prevalent amongst the entire community, and reaching 5500 was actually a pretty big deal. There's going to be a lot of people that don't know who these guys are, but there was a group called K9, and this was also, I think, still back when it was 4v4. And then there was another group of like Nerve, Act, Boy, and all them. And I just remember them just constantly going back and forth, because at the time, like, they were the top two teams, just like constantly matching each other. And I was sitting watching their streams. Now, granted, this was back in a little bit better of a meta, but you know, I was just sitting back, actually watching their streams, like, you know, watching the close games and actually genuinely enjoying it, like a competitive environment, because the both teams were so good. And you know, it was awesome,
Yeah.
to say the least.
One thing I would love to see supported is private matches and tournaments by Bungie. I understand why it's not, especially with the history behind a lot of the like scrims community. I know that they did a what was it back in D1?
Are you gonna say
they
the
had like
MLG events?
Yeah,
I watched that video yesterday, all like 1 hour and 20
I've
minutes.
never
of
seen it.
It's on YouTube.
I'll have to watch that. But it's
I actually watched that yesterday.
yeah, I would love to see that supported more and that community built more, because you get more people in to scrims and into private matches that truly want to get better at the game, and then you have more people going flawless. You have more people playing PvP, and that helps solve the population issue as in correlation with like a true ranked mode as well. I'm all for anything that increases PvP population. I understand why a lot of people stray away from it, especially since PvP players can definitely get toxic. But you know, we're at a state in the game where it's not really entirely the community, it's the state that the game is in with the meta. It always comes back to the meta that keeps people playing or keeps people away from playing PvP.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are frustrated. And I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of PvP players, they don't broadcast themselves the best.
I know Forge mode is completely out of the question, but why do we not have more in-depth options in private matches?
Dude, imagine being able to like change the amount of special you spawn with, or
Change health, or
Yeah.
have all the maps available, even if they're
Or-
not in the rotation of quick play.
or being able to physically ban things. Like
Yeah, like pick and
prevent them
ban,
from
save
use.
certain game modes with certain rules.
having presets, having the ability to create game modes, you know. That
Mm.
last one is like it, I would imagine is insanely difficult, especially since Destiny as a game wasn't built for that like Halo was.
Was Bungie the one that brought Forge mode to Halo?
I'm pretty sure.
I'm surprised they haven't gone in depth in Destiny private matches.
I've
That
always been a
kinda
PC
blows my
player,
mind.
so I don't remember.
Yeah, I didn't play that much Halo back in the day, and I wasn't like that in depth with all in the know-how, so I don't know. But if they were, that kind of blows my mind a little bit.
Yeah, I would love a Forge mode or customization for private matches.
Yeah, it could even be just more like party mode based too. Like it doesn't have to be revolved around like super high tier competitive private matches.
Mhm.
It's just like fun stuff we want added, just more creativity, more in depth ability just to do fun things.
A counter
Yeah,
to
we'll
that.
definitely add more content.
A counter
Yeah.
to that, for it being more competitive is the saying Destiny 2 is not a competitive game, which it
No,
definitely
100%.
it definitely isn't a competitive game, but that doesn't mean that people can't try and find competition within it or try and create competition within it. And I feel like
Yeah.
if somebody wants to bring something to the game, or I don't know, in a general sense, just has a idea, maybe give them the ability to create that idea, even if it's in a minimal way. Like somebody has an idea for a fun party game mode, you know, like Team Scorched is probably the biggest example of a party game mode, right? Imagine being able to change the weapons you use or lock it down to a specific weapon and roll. I feel like that'd be really cool. Like imagine creating a 3v3 party game mode where it's only, I guess it wouldn't really be a party game mode because it's hand cannons, but like you're only allowed to use NF. I feel like
Yeah.
that would be a cool thing for keeping people playing the game and keeping those numbers up, whether or not it's match made.
It'd be so much fun.
Yeah, or being able to change what version of the gun you're using. So say you want to, wasn't Not Forgotten 150 for like a season or two?
It went from 180, 150 to 140.
Imagine being able to use 150 Not Forgotten, or even old Maghal 180 Not Forgotten.
Oh.
Imagine
Asking
being
too
able to, yeah, I'm definitely asking too much, because from a game development standpoint, I have no experience except for using Game Maker in my freshman year, remaking Doom and making sprites and stuff like that. That's my bare minimum. But I feel like that would be, I don't know, I think that's all I'd play is custom game modes like that. But keeping people in match-made activities, Bungie created match-made activities, is keeping people in there is very hard, especially with how the meta's been going for a lot of people. I actually really want to get somebody on that is on a lower bracket, like 1 KD or below, or 1.5, that's playing Control a lot more, and get their input on that.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, because it for all of us, it's we're all like top 10%, so we all have the same perspective. So having the other side of that perspective would be good to have.
Yes, I feel like it'd be a lot more interesting if we were like arguing, but we all agree on like everything.
Yeah.
So
For my
like,
next
no,
guest, I
Zack,
want to
you're
try and
fucking
get
stupid.
I want to try and get a more someone to truly go back and forth with on an opinion, because having all people who agree on the same thing doesn't really create that much content, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I could start dropping some hot takes, you know, if you want.
I mean, hey, if it's fuck it, drop it.
I can't think of it.
Okay, you said you could. You said you could drop some hot takes.
So you need to speak about something, then my mind will activate. You know.
Like I would love to argue with a casual player over skill based matchmaking. That'd be awesome.
Well, the argument I could see is keeping people who are new to the game playing, but
Mhm.
I feel like a better solution
like
to
we
that is
save it, though.
something that came from Black Ops 2. Cody, you probably remember, maybe Zack.
Oh, yeah. That's where my opinion comes from.
Yeah, having the until you're level 10, you go against people that are below level 10. Well, we're at the nearly 1.5 hour mark. Does anybody have anything else remaining that they would like to talk about?
Did we cover all of our initial topics?
I believe so. They all kind of tie into, there's some of them tie into each other. We didn't touch on the net limiting fiasco that happened a few months back.
Or the Beyond
Yeah.
Light lighting changes. I mean,
Oh yeah, what are your guys' opinion on the lighting? Do you think it was better before Beyond Light or after?
It was so much better.
What about
The
you?
game, like, yeah, I don't know.
What about you, Myron?
No, I'm all good there.
Do you prefer Beyond Light lighting or pre-Beyond Light lighting?
I don't have an answer for you, man.
All right.
I do.
that sentence is the perfect embodiment of your profile picture. All good, man. All right, what about you, Cody?
Did they test it? Like, did somebody
look at the sun?
somebody stand in the cave looking out towards the opening and say, "Holy shit, this is dark"?
I
can
think
actually
I think they looked at it solo without anybody in front of the sun.
Like,
For me,
absolutely zero hate towards the Bungie devs. Like the core of D2 is amazing, but I feel like this is just something that I feel like they had to have just been running through the map or some sort of development process when they were creating the map. They had to have noticed that it was just unbearably bright in certain areas of certain maps. And I just don't understand how it just got by to the point where like, oh, this is going to be awesome. Players are not going to be able to see. Like I'm confused.
I feel like I'm the only person, but minus the sun blinding me and me not being able to see people, I feel like I kind of like the Beyond Light lighting. I also feel like people's love for pre-Beyond Light lighting is also tied to the meta and the actual performance of the game back then. I feel like that's what they missed the most. But I could understand the seeing the lighting changes in a negative way when it comes to like Invis on Eternity. I'm not too sure how prevalent Invis was in year one whenever Eternity was in like Trials of the Nine. But yeah. That's my take on it.
Yeah, I just want to preface PvE, it's great. Like the lighting, the color, the environments, they did a fantastic job. But like PvP, we want to be able to see everything. Like that's the kind of the point is we want to be able to see our enemy, we want to be able to see our teammates. We need good coloring and just good visibility. Otherwise, it almost makes certain areas of the map just unplayable.
Yeah.
So that
I feel like there's too much contrast in PvP
it's
between the
not like it's
dark and the
overwhelmed.
light.
Yeah, and it's not like it's overwhelmingly bad. Like I'm definitely overplaying it a little bit, but in just certain areas, it's so bad sometimes. It's just like I'm not even going to challenge that corridor because there's no point. I'm not going to be able to see anything.
Yeah. Fuck, I had a point to that, but I forgot it. Shit. Oh, yeah. So that also comes back to PvP being a very small part of the game, you know? The game, you play anything in PvE, the game looks great, right? But it makes sense that wasn't taken into full account when they were changing the lighting or updating the engine, you know?
Yeah, just a small thing.
There's a lot of small things about this game.
I feel like shadows looked better back then too. I feel like everything's kind of like blurred now.
I
But if
completely
you go
use
back and watch
shadows.
like
I play with shadows
you-
as low as possible, so
if you watch like a clip from Dead Cliffs back in the day, like the grass was so green and there was like shadows off the building and stuff. Now it's like you don't have that. It's just like blurry.
The only grass you've ever touched.
Mr.
What
Number
is it that
One
they
Steam
changed with the
kills.
lighting? Or like, what was the reasoning for it? Do we know?
I think they just wanted to update the visual
it
of
the
the
engine?
game.
Yeah,
Well,
it was
they-
the engine change, wasn't it?
Well,
Yeah.
I think they could have done the engine change without the lighting, but I think they just wanted to update the look of the game.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if it was at that point that we knew that this game was going to be continuing on for 3 more expansions after that. But I feel like they just wanted to update the look of the game. But I could see the love for the old look. It
feel like they
reminds you
just,
of a
like-
better time.
They looked at Beyond Light and said it's all gonna be snow anyway. Just make it a blur.
That was a big part of it too, like the dynamic weather or whatever.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. All right, well, does anybody have any other topics that they want to bring up?
I think I'm good. Was that a
I'm also
decent
good.
first episode?
Yeah,
I
that's
don't even
a
know.
pretty sizable episode.
Are people gonna think we're boring?
More than likely. But all right, well, if anybody watching has any suggestions for topics we should cover, or you think we should cover, or if you don't care about our opinion at all, leave a comment or whatever.
Guest
Any-
recommendations?
Yes, any input on this would be great. Especially for a name. I don't really want to have it named after myself like it's been recommended. I'd rather it be a general thing. But
Name after me instead.
no, definitely not named
Okay,
after
my
a
bad.
controller player. That wouldn't be a good idea.
Whoa.
I do not appreciate the controller discrimination here.
Also want to thank Myrrin for being our first guest on such short notice. I think it was
Well,
like
Myrrin.
10 minutes from me asking you to us starting recording. So I appreciate you being on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, yes, of course. All right. That's about it, guys. Thank you all for watching. Leave a like, leave a dislike, leave a comment, nasty one, whatever you want to do. It's up to you. Have a good night.